There is a kind of poverty that has nothing to do with how much money is in your bank account. It doesn't show up on a financial statement. It doesn't get talked about in economics classes. It doesn't make headlines, but it is quietly, patiently destroying the financial futures of millions of people every single day. And there is a very good chance it is living inside of you right now. I'm not talking about laziness. I'm not talking about poor spending habits. I'm not talking about a lack of ambition. I'm talking about something far more subtle, far more personal, far more painful. I'm talking about the guilt you feel every time you want more. The shame that rises in your chest when you imagine a life that looks different from the one you were raised in. The quiet, suffocating voice in the back of your mind that says, "Who do you think you are?" That voice has a name. Psychologists call it the poverty mindset. But not the kind of poverty mindset that's obvious. Not the kind where someone gives up entirely and stops trying. I'm talking about the silent version. The one that lets you work hard, even work incredibly hard, but then sabotages you the moment success gets too close. The one that makes you feel like wanting financial freedom is somehow selfish. Like desiring a better life makes you ungrateful for what you have. Like dreaming bigger than your parents somehow means you think you're better than them. That is the silent poverty mindset. And it is one of the most psychologically complex and most common barriers to wealth that exists. I want you to close your eyes for a second. Actually, don't close your eyes, keep watching. But I want you to picture this. You're at a family dinner, it's a Sunday. The table is full, people are laughing, passing food, talking about the week. And someone asks you, "So how's that business thing going?" And you have good news. Real good news, things are actually working, money is coming in, you're growing. And something happens in that moment, something tightens in your chest. And instead of sharing your excitement, instead of saying things are incredible, I'm building something real, you shrink. You minimize, you say, "Oh, it's okay, just figuring things out, you know how it is." Because somewhere deep inside you are terrified, not of failure, of success. Of what success might mean about you, of what it might do to the people at that table. Of who you might become if you actually make it. That moment, that shrinking, that hiding, that silent self-betrayal, that is the poverty mindset doing its work. And it does that work quietly, without asking permission, without announcing itself. Just a gentle, invisible hand pulling you back every time you get too close to the life you actually want. Now let's talk about where this comes from, because this does not appear out of nowhere. This is built piece by piece, year by year, mostly before you were old enough to question any of it. Dr. Gabor Mate, one of the most important voices in trauma and human development, has spent decades studying how early emotional environments shape who we become as adults. And one of his central findings is this: children do not learn what they are taught. Children learn what they live. If you grew up in a home where money was tight, where the conversation around finances was always tense, always stressed, always accompanied by a kind of low-grade fear, your nervous system absorbed all of that. Not as a lesson, as a reality, as the way the world works, as what life feels like. And your brain, the most sophisticated survival system ever created, made a very logical conclusion. Money equals pain, wanting more equals disappointment. Hoping for better equals setting yourself up to get hurt. So the safest thing, the most loving thing your brain could do for you was to lower your expectations. To flatten your desires, to make you feel guilty whenever those desires started to rise again. Because guilt is a leash, and the brain uses guilt to keep you inside the fence it believes is safe. This is not a character flaw, this is not weakness, this is neuroscience. This is your brain doing exactly what it evolved to do: keep you alive. Keep you connected to your tribe. And keep you from doing anything that might get you rejected. And for most of human history, that was the right strategy. Getting too far ahead of your tribe meant being cast out. And being cast out meant death. So the brain learned stay close, stay small, don't want too much. But here is the devastating irony. We are no longer living in that world. The rules have changed, the stakes have changed. Wanting more will not get you killed. Dreaming bigger will not get you exiled, but your nervous system doesn't know that. It is still running ancient code in a modern world. And that ancient code is costing you everything. Let me introduce you to something that psychologist Sonia Lyubomirsky and her colleagues identified in their research on happiness and motivation, something called the hedonic treadmill. The idea is simple. Human beings have a powerful tendency to return to a baseline level of emotional experience, no matter what happens to them externally. Win the lottery, you eventually feel the same. Get the promotion, eventually it feels normal. Buy the house, eventually it's just where you live. But here is the darker side of this concept that nobody talks about. The hedonic treadmill also works in reverse. If your emotional and psychological baseline, your sense of what you deserve, what feels normal, what feels safe is set at scarcity, you will keep recreating scarcity. No matter how many opportunities come your way, no matter how many times the door opens, no matter how hard you consciously try to change, because the subconscious mind is not interested in your goals. It is interested in consistency. It is interested in matching your outer reality to your inner expectation. And if your inner expectation is, I am someone who struggles, then struggling is what will feel right. Abundance will feel wrong. Abundance will feel dangerous. Abundance will feel like it belongs to someone else, and you will give it back. Every single time until you change the expectation. Until you go in deep in and update the program. Now I want to talk about something that I believe is the most misunderstood concept in all of personal finance. It is not compound interest, it is not asset allocation, it is not tax strategy. It is identity, specifically the identity you hold about yourself in relation to money. Because here is what decades of psychological research have confirmed over and over again. People do not rise to the level of their goals, they fall to the level of their identity. Read that again, you do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your identity. James Clear made this concept famous in Atomic Habits, but the psychological roots go much deeper. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist who revolutionized our understanding of the human psyche, spent much of his career studying what he called the shadow. The shadow is the collection of beliefs, emotions, and self-perceptions that we have buried, hidden from conscious awareness, because they feel too painful, too shameful, or too threatening to look at directly. And one of the most common things people bury in the shadow: the belief that they don't deserve success, the belief that wanting more is wrong, the belief that wealth is for other people. These shadow beliefs don't disappear just because you've stopped looking at them. They go underground, they operate in the dark, and they influence every financial decision you make, every negotiation, every investment, every opportunity you walk toward or away from without you ever realizing they're there. This is why simply wanting to change is not enough. This is why motivation fades. This is why discipline breaks down. Because you are trying to build a new financial life on top of an identity that is actively rejecting it. You are trying to grow a garden on concrete. And no matter how many seeds you plant, no matter how much water you add, nothing will grow until you break up the ground underneath. I want to tell you about a woman, I'll call her Maya. Maya grew up watching her mother work 2 jobs, never complaining, never resting. Sacrifice was the language of love in her home. Hard work was the highest virtue. And wanting things, nice things, comfortable things, abundant things, was quietly associated with selfishness. With vanity, with not being grateful, Maya became a high performer. Brilliant, driven, capable. In her late 20s, she started making real money. More than anyone in her family had ever made, and instead of feeling proud, she felt sick. Actual physical anxiety every time she looked at her growing bank account. She started giving money away impulsively, not from generosity, from guilt. She undercharged for her work. She avoided negotiating her salary. She told herself she was being humble, but what was actually happening was far more complex. Maya's subconscious had made an equation: success equals betraying my mother. Wealth equals saying her sacrifice wasn't worth it. Abundance equals abandoning the identity of the woman who raised me. So every time Maya got close to financial freedom, she found a way to come back down. Because down felt like home, down felt like love, down felt like loyalty. This is intergenerational financial guilt. And it is one of the most heartbreaking and most invisible forms of self-sabotage I have ever studied. Because the people carrying it are not sabotaging themselves out of weakness. They are doing it out of love, out of loyalty to the people who shaped them. And that loyalty, as beautiful as it is quietly keeping them trapped. Here is what I need you to understand. Honoring the people who raised you does not require you to stay poor. Loving your parents does not mean inheriting their financial pain. Loyalty to your family does not mean loyalty to their limitations. You can love where you came from and still choose to go somewhere different. You can respect every sacrifice that was made for you and still decide that sacrifice is not the only way to live. You can carry gratitude in your heart and ambition in your hands at the same time. These things are not opposites, they never were. The belief that they are opposites, that is the prison. That is the cage the silent poverty mindset builds around you. And the door to that cage has been unlocked this entire time. You just didn't know it. Now I want to give you something practical. Because awareness without action is just pain with a label. And I don't want you to walk away from this video simply feeling understood. I want you to walk away with a map. A real psychological, step-by-step framework for dismantling the silent poverty mindset and beginning to rebuild your relationship with money from the ground up. This is a 3-step process. It is not fast, it is not a hack, it is not a trick. It is deep work, real work, the kind of work that actually changes lives. Step 1 is what I call the excavation. Before you can change your money story, you have to know what your money story actually is. Not the surface version, not the one you tell people at dinner parties, the real one. The one running in the background. Here is how you do it. You sit down alone, no distractions, and you complete these sentences in writing. Money is blank, rich people are blank, I don't have more money because blank. I would feel guilty if I became wealthy because blank. The people I love would think blank if I became successful. Write the first thing that comes to mind, don't filter, don't edit. Don't try to write the right answer, write the true answer. Because what comes out of that exercise will show you exactly what your subconscious has been working with. It will show you the blueprint, it will show you the thermostat setting. And seeing it, really seeing it in your own handwriting on a real piece of paper, is the first moment of real freedom. Because you cannot change what you cannot see. And most people spend their entire lives being controlled by beliefs they have never once examined. Dr. Joe Dispenza, a neuroscientist and researcher who has spent years studying the relationship between thought patterns and real-world outcomes, describes this process as becoming the observer of your own mind. Most of us are not observers of our minds, we are prisoners of them. We mistake our thoughts for reality, we mistake our conditioning for truth. We mistake the voice of our past for the voice of our future. The excavation is the moment you step outside the prison and look at it from the outside for the first time. And it changes everything. Step 2 is what I call the reframe. Once you have identified the beliefs, once you can see them clearly, the work becomes replacing them. Not suppressing them, not fighting them, replacing them. Because your brain cannot hold two contradictory beliefs with equal emotional intensity at the same time. So the strategy is not to destroy the old belief. The strategy is to build the new one so strong, so vivid, so emotionally charged that it begins to override the old programming. Here is how this works in practice. Take one of the beliefs you uncovered in step 1. Let's say it's wanting more money makes me greedy. Now ask yourself, is this actually true? Not is this what I was taught? Not is this what the people around me believe? Is this objectively, demonstrably true? Because wanting to provide for your family is not greed. Wanting to stop living paycheck to paycheck is not greed. Wanting to have the freedom to make choices about your own life is not greed. Greed is taking more than you need at the direct expense of others. Wanting financial security is survival. Wanting financial freedom is wisdom. Wanting to build wealth is one of the most responsible things a human being can do for themselves, for their family, for their community. Now write that down, write the new belief in your own words in the first person. Wanting financial freedom is not selfish. It is one of the most responsible decisions I can make for the people I love. And then read it every single morning, not because affirmations are magic, but because repetition is how the brain learns. Repetition is how old neural pathways weaken and new ones strengthen. Neuroscientist Donald Hebb described it in 1949 with a phrase that became one of the most important ideas in modern brain science. Neurons that fire together wire together. Every time you consciously choose the new belief over the old one, every time you catch the guilt rising and consciously redirect it, you are literally rewiring your brain. You are updating the blueprint, you are resetting the thermostat. This is not metaphor, this is neuroscience, this is biology. This is how human beings actually change. Step 3 is what I call the expansion. This is where the internal work meets the external world. Because at some point, after the excavation, after the reframe, you have to actually start taking different actions. Small ones at first, uncomfortable ones. Actions that feel wrong because they are inconsistent with the old identity. Actions that make your nervous system light up with anxiety because they represent something unfamiliar. This might look like asking for the raise you have been putting off for 2 years. This might look like raising your prices even when it terrifies you. This might look like opening the investment account you have been meaning to open for 3 years and actually putting something in it. This might look like saying no to the financial request from someone in your life that you always say yes to, even when it drains you. Each of these actions, no matter how small, sends a new signal to your subconscious. It says, I am someone who takes care of my financial future. I am someone who believes I deserve more. I am someone who is no longer operating from the old blueprint. And every time you follow through, every time you do the uncomfortable thing and survive it, the new identity gets stronger. The new thermostat setting gets locked in a little deeper. The new program starts running a little more automatically. And slowly, not overnight but surely, the guilt starts to lose its grip. The shame starts to quiet down. The voice that says, "Who do you think you are?" starts to be replaced by a different voice. A voice that says, "I know exactly who I am, and I am someone who is no longer afraid of success." I want to leave you with something that I think about often. There is a concept in psychology called post-traumatic growth. Most people have heard of post-traumatic stress, the way trauma can break people down, the way it can leave invisible wounds that last for decades. But post-traumatic growth is the other side of that coin. It is the documented, research-backed phenomenon of people who have experienced profound pain, profound limitation, profound scarcity, and used it as fuel. Not fuel for bitterness, not fuel for resentment, fuel for transformation. Researchers Richard Tedeschi and Lawrence Calhoun at the University of North Carolina spent years studying people who had gone through devastating experiences and come out not just intact, but fundamentally stronger. More open, more grateful, more purposeful, more alive. And what they found was that the people who experienced the most growth were not the ones who pretended the pain hadn't happened. They were not the ones who buried it or ran from it or numbed it. They were the ones who looked at it directly, who said, "This happened to me, this shaped me, and now I'm going to decide what it means." Your financial past, however painful, however limiting, however heavy, does not have to be your financial future. The scarcity you grew up with does not have to be the scarcity you pass on. The guilt your parents carried does not have to be the guilt your children inherit. The thermostat can be reset, the blueprint can be rewritten. The program can be changed, but only by you, only by doing the work. Only by choosing every single day and every small decision to be someone who is no longer defined by where they started. You made it to this video for a reason. You stayed until the end for a reason. Something in you is ready. Something in you already knows that the old story has run its course. And something in you is waiting quietly, patiently, for permission to start writing a new one. So here is your permission. You are allowed to want more. You are allowed to build more. You are allowed to become more. Not at the expense of your values, not at the expense of the people you love, but in honor of them. In honor of every sacrifice that was made so that you could be sitting here right now watching this. Thinking this, feeling this. The greatest thing you can do for the people who struggled so you wouldn't have to, is to actually stop struggling. If this video cracked something open in you, if it put words to something you have been feeling for a long time, drop the word "shift" in the comments right now. I read every single one. And if you want more content like this, real deep, psychological content about money, mindset, and the invisible forces shaping your financial life, subscribe to this channel. Because we are just getting started.